national anthem Indonesia Raya. You may all be seated. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Welcome to Rising to the Top, Women Leadership in Executive Positions in IDX200. Let's give a big round of applause for our event today, virtually. All right, thank you. So this event is also a commemoration of Kartini Day. For your information, Kartini is an Indonesian hero for women's rights. And I'd like to have your permission, ladies and gentlemen, to take off my mask as we in the studio all have been fully vaccinated and we all have undergone an antigen test earlier today and also yesterday. This forum is organized by Indonesia Stock Exchange and Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, or IBCW, in collaboration with B20 Indonesia 2022, supported by the Australian government, investing in women, Catalyst and Chief Executive Women. My name is Rory Ashari, and I'm so pleased to be your host and also moderator for today's event. Just a bit of a background of why we hold today's event. So ILO's 2020 research brief, Leading to Success, the business case for women in business and management in Indonesia, shows that women's representation continues to shrink further up the corporate ladder. You can imagine, from 416 enterprises in Indonesia, 61% had women as supervisory managers, 70% as middle managers, 49% as senior managers, and only 22% had women as top executives. Over half of the surveyed companies had only 1 to 10% of top executive roles employed by women. And furthermore, even when in management level or management roles, women are concentrated in corporate functions that tend not to lead to the top executive, board, and CEO positions. Therefore, with advisory support from Investing in Women, IW, Chief Executive Women, CEW, and Catalyst, Indonesia Stock Exchange, IDX, and also IBC, we replicated the CEW Senior Executive Census on Australia Stock Exchange 200 or ASX 200. Now, the census analyzes the representation of women in the ASX 200 executive leadership teams, and the analysis includes tracking the progress of women through to the senior ranks in corporate Australia by looking at the proportion of women in pipeline roles to fill senior executive positions. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are announcing the women leadership in executive position in the IDX 200 census result. But firstly, would like to inform the webinar's ground rules, so we are on the same page today. First and foremost, this webinar will be conducted in English, while Bahasa Indonesia interpretation is available. So you can activate the interpretation feature in the bottom of your screen and choose which language you wish to hear. Number 2, please change your name if you haven't done so to name plus your company name by clicking the participants icon and hovering your cursor and hand over your name and also choosing rename. And please do kindly to do it now. And if you'd like to contribute to the discussion, we would like to invite you to use the Q&A feature. So this webinar is also available on IDX YouTube channel, so you may inform and invite your friends, your family, your colleague to join our webinar today. Now I would like to welcome our speakers for today's event. We've got many excellent women guests today. Her Excellency Mrs. Bintang Puspayoga, Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia. Ibu Bintang, thank you so much for your participation. Her Excellency Ms. Penny Williams, Head of Mission, the Australian Embassy. Welcome, Ms. Penny. The Honorable Mrs. Risa Evenita Rustam, Finance and Human Resources Director of IDX, G20 Empower Advocate Indonesia, and the WFE's World Federation of Exchanges Women Leaders 2022. A warm welcome also to Ms. Maya Juwita, Executive Director of IBCW, who will deliver the key findings of the IDX 200 census. This is something that we're looking forward to hearing. And Mrs. Sinta Kamdani, Chair of B20 Indonesia 2022, Mr. Inarno Jayadi, the CEO of Indonesia Stock Exchange. Welcome, Pak. Ms. Virginie Barbeau, Head of Southeast Asia Pacific and Managing Director of NASDAQ. Mrs. Febriani Edi, CEO of PT Vale Indonesia. And last but not least, Ms. Julia Newton-Ho, CEO of Investing in Women. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome and thank you so much for joining our event today and participating in our event today. And without further ado, I would like to invite Mrs. Risa Rustam to deliver her opening remarks. Ibu Risa.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, shalom, om swastiastu, namo buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Our honorable guests and speakers, Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia, Her Excellency Ibu Bintang Puspayoga, Head of Mission, the Australian Embassy, Her Excellency Penny Williams, President Director of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Bapak Inarno Jayadi, Managing Director of Southeast Asia and Pacific Region of NASDAQ, Ms. Virginie Barbeau, CEO of Investing in Women, Dr. Julia Newton-House, AM, Chair of B20 Indonesia 2022, Ibu Sinta Kamdani, CEO of PT Vale Indonesia Tbk, Ibu Febriani Edi, Executive Director, Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, or IBCW, Ibu Maya Juwita, Board of Director of Self-Regulatory Organizations, which are Indonesia Stock Exchange, Indonesian Clearing and Guarantee Corporation, Indonesia Securities Central Depository, and representatives of IDX subsidiaries, IDX listed companies, IDX members, IBCV members, G20 and ASEAN stock exchanges, and all distinguished participants. Welcome to the Rising to the Top Women Leadership in Executive Position in IDX200 webinar. As part of the United Nations Sustainable Stock Exchange Initiative, Indonesia Stock Exchange always strives to be a role model in implementing and encouraging our stakeholders to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in Indonesia capital market. One of the very important SDGs focus is gender equality, which could only be achieved by strengthening the role of women and their active participation in leadership position and inclusive economic growth. In an effort to achieve the goal of gender equality, IDX, IBCV, Catalyst, Investing in Women, and the Australian Embassy have carried out Women in Executive Leadership in the IDX200 census, which is a census of women's representation in executive roles in 200 listed companies with the largest capitalization and transaction activity in IDX. The census had been conducted from December 2021 to March 2022. In conjunction with the census, we held this webinar to convey the key findings of the census result. This webinar is also part of G20 presidency of Indonesia's B20 event and in commemoration of Kartini Day 2022. We are holding this event internationally by inviting all our stakeholders and stock exchanges from G20 and ASEAN member countries. Through this event, we hope to enhance awareness and give insight to increase women participation in the leadership position in the financial industry, especially in the Indonesia capital market. Ladies and gentlemen, amplifying the importance of women's leadership roles is crucial because the number of women represented on the board of directors in Indonesia is still relatively low. ILO's survey of 416 enterprises in Indonesia found that over half of the surveyed companies had only 1 to 10% of top executive roles employed by women. Furthermore, even in management roles, women are concentrated in corporate functions that tend not to lead to the top executive, board, or CEO positions. Analysis by McKinsey Global Institute puts women's representation in Indonesia in the pipeline to senior management at 13% and only 5% for board membership. Globally, Sustainable Stock Exchange's Gender Equality 2021 data showed that of the 2,200 listed companies with the largest market capitalizations in G20 member countries, only 20% of women were in management, 5.5% were on the board of directors, and only 3.5% were in position of CEO. The data shows that women are still underrepresented at all levels in the company. In fact, the study on women empowerment principles implementation in the top 50 companies in Indonesia by IBCV, Indonesia Global Compact Network, and UN Women Indonesia revealed that companies that have at least one woman in the executive level tend to have higher business performance than companies whose executive level are all men. Therefore, to support the participation and increase the leadership role of women in Indonesia, we consistently encourage all companies in the capital market industry to continuously improve good practices to support women's empowerment in business and to take concrete steps to implement policies that are more sensitive and responsive to gender, thereby contributing to the improvement of women's leadership roles in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that our sharing and discussion in today's webinar will be beneficial for us to create an ecosystem that is able to dismantle the barriers for women to advance, especially in the corporate culture and business environment that support women empowerment. Finally, I would like to thank all the speakers for sharing their insights with all the participants in this Rising to the Top Women Leadership in Executive Position in IDX200 webinar. May we all always be given health and protection from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the Almighty God. Let's unlock the door to success and keep moving forward for all women. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ibu Risa, thank you so much for the opening remarks. So we've got to several points, but I'd like to point out two important points conducted by or delivered by Ibu Risa. The first one is the other research that we have heard before, that over half of the companies surveyed, around 416 companies, only 1 to 10% executive positions are led by women. This is so low compared to companies led by men in the executive levels. And secondly, companies with more women in executive roles perform better in business than those led by the majority of men. That's the sense of what Ibu Risa had to say for the opening remarks. Next, would like to hear two keynote speeches. The first one is from Her Excellency Ms. Penny Williams, Head of Mission, the Australian Embassy. Ms. Penny Williams, the screen is yours.
Her Excellency Ibu Bintang Puspayoga, Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Honourable Speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, selamat pagi. In December last year, I had the pleasure of speaking at the launch of the Census on Women in Executive Leadership Teams in IDX200 companies. A survey designed to measure the number of women in executive leadership positions in Indonesia's top 200 companies, replicating Australia's Chief Executive Women's Senior Executive Census here in Indonesia. And of course, today is Kartini Day. Selamat Hari Kartini. This is the day when we commemorate the life and work of Raden Ajeng Kartini, Indonesia's well-known women's rights activist. So it is fitting that the Indonesia Stock Exchange and the Indonesian Business Coalition for Women Empowerment have chosen today to share the key findings of the census on women's presence in executive leadership. This collaboration between the Indonesian Business Coalition for Women Empowerment and the Indonesian Stock Exchange was supported by Australian government-funded initiatives investing in women and catalysts. A gender-equal world is a safer, more secure and more prosperous world for all of us. Higher female labour force participation is an economic multiplier, reducing poverty and inequality for all. Indonesia's G20 presidency this year provides a unique opportunity to promote Indonesia's achievements on a global level. So I'm delighted that the B20 is supporting this effort to increase female participation in senior corporate leadership positions. Unfortunately, we're still on a journey to achieving gender equality in Australia, in Indonesia and globally. Women are often underrepresented in key decision-making roles and management levels in our workplaces. Australia and Indonesia share this challenge. This is why joint initiatives like the Census on Women in Executive Leadership Teams in IDX200 companies are so important. Australia's Chief Executive Women's Census has been tracking the representation of women in senior positions of Australia's biggest public companies since it started in 2017. The 2021 census revealed that leading Australian companies still have a lot of work to do, both to build more balanced leadership teams and to ensure women are in the key pipeline roles to be promoted to CEOs. In Australia, women make up only a quarter of the executive leadership teams in the ASX 300. Only 6% of CEOs are women, and only 14% of roles with key financial responsibility are held by women. The Australian Government is investing heavily in gender equality and women's economic empower initiatives at home, in our region and in our broader international engagement. We're committed to realising gender equality and women's economic empowerment in our country and with our neighbours in the Indo-Pacific region. I congratulate the Indonesian Stock Exchange and the Indonesian Business Coalition for Women Empowerment for replicating the Chief Executive Women's Senior Executive Census Survey in Indonesia. When it comes to running businesses, it's true that what gets measured gets managed. It is critical to have the data to track change. With clear, quantifiable goals and progress measured over time, companies can promote gender equality and women's empowerment in their workforces. That's why I'm pleased to hear that the Indonesian Stock Exchange has committed to undertake the census on women in IDX200 executive leadership teams annually. As you come together today to explore key findings, I wish you all a productive discussion on how to accelerate progress to achieving more balanced executive leadership teams and greater levels of women's leadership in the private sector. In closing, I would like to thank the Indonesian Stock Exchange and the Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment for hosting today's event. And thank you also to our other partners who have worked so hard to organise today's event. Terima kasih dan semoga sukses.
Mrs. Penny Williams, the head of mission, the Australian Embassy, thank you so much for your speech. And I would like to invite the Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection of the Republic of Indonesia, Her Excellency Mrs. Bintang Puspayoga. Ibu Bintang, the time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning from Jakarta, and may health and peace be upon all of us. Honorables, Her Excellency Miss Penny Williams, Head of Mission, the Australian Embassy, Bapak Inarto Jayadi, CEO of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Ibu Risa Rustam, Finance and Human Resource Director of IDX200 Empower Advocate Indonesia and World Federation of Exchanges Women Leaders 2022, Ibu Maya Juwita, Executive Director of Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, Ibu Sinta Kamdani, Chair of B20 Indonesia 2022, Honorable Result Person, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to all distinguished speakers and participants joining us today in this meaningful discussion as a part of the B20 Indonesia 2022 event. I would also like to say Happy Kartini Day to all Indonesia women across the archipelago. I hope today's remembrance could renew our spirit in continuing Kartini fight toward gender equality. Ladies and gentlemen, with more than 270 million people, Indonesia is the world's fourth most populous country. Women's participation and leadership have enormous potential for boosting the economy, as half of Indonesia's and the world's population are women. Women potential is not merely a notion, but is supported by numerous studies around the world, which conclude that women leadership has a great influence on creating an inclusive environment, increasing employee retention, and even generating better production, profit, and efficiency. Unfortunately, women labor force participation rate is still far behind men's, which is 53.34% compared to 82.27% of August 2021. Data from Statistics Indonesia in 2021 also shows that women continue to suffer many disparities in the workplace. 63.80% of women compared to 56.61% of men work in the informal sector. The average wage of female workers is 2.35 million rupiahs, while that of men is 2.96 million rupiahs, and the proportion of women working in managerial position is only 32.50%. Even though women perform just as well as men at work, their career development is hampered by the existence of the glass ceiling effect. According to various research, the barriers include, but are not limited to, women's double burden caused by unbalanced unpaid care work in the family, individual factors such as competence that arise because of gender inequality and large gender stereotyping in the workplace, discriminatory organization policies, masculinity contents culture, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, empowering women to reach top decision-making position will provide benefit for all. Therefore, we must support equal access to women to become leaders by working together to continue gender mainstreaming effort in all development fields, increase the participation of women in the workforce, continue to improve their competencies, and create women-friendly workplaces, breaking the glass ceiling. The government of Indonesia is committed to achieving gender mainstreaming, including in the workplace, as mentioned in the National Medium-Term Development Plan, RPJMN, 2020 to 2024, and several other regulations such as Presidential Instruction on Gender Mainstreaming in National Development, or Inpress number 9 of the year 2000. At the global level, Indonesia is also committed to supporting the G20 Brisbane goal to reduce the gender gap in labor force participation by 25% in 2025. This year's G20 presidency Indonesia gives opportunities to address these issues at home and among G20 member countries. The government of Indonesia work closely with the G20 Empower, and one of the main priorities is to increase women's representation in leadership positions in the private sector. Private companies are encouraged to measure and disclose G20 Empower core key performance indicators, focusing on the female share of the workforce, the gender pay gap, the share of women-owned companies, both of directors, and the share of women in the technical roles. Therefore, let me convey my sincere appreciation to all parties involved in the IDX200 census on women in executive leadership, especially the Australian government through investing in women program in Catalyst, Indonesia Stock Exchange, and Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment. The funding disseminated today will surely give valuable insight and learnings that could be carried forward to support the G20 mainstreaming agenda, especially in creating equal access for women in leadership and economic participation. Continuing Kartini's spirit and determination, let's work together hand in hand to empower women to be the best that they can be. When women are empowered and children are well protected, prosperity will be available for all. Thank you and have a fruitful meeting. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi, Santi, Santi Om. Namo Buddhaya.
Such an important message from the Minister Ibu Bintang. When women are empowered and children are protected, then prosperity is there for us to grab. And we are so, as a nation, we are so grateful that Indonesia now has the law on violence eradication against women that was just passed by the House of Representatives last week. And this law is hoped to protect women, including in the workplace, and to have gender equality in all spectrum of life. And in politics and government bodies, we all have seen that good proportion of women of at least 30% are in place compared to men right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now heading to the core of our event today, which is the research finding presentation of the Women Leadership in Executive Position in IDX200 initiative. We've got the ILO research looking at 416 companies earlier, and now we have the census looking at the best and most trusted companies in Indonesia in the IDX200 list. Without further ado, please welcome Ms. Maya Juwita, Executive Director of IBCW. All right, before we start, Ibu Maya, I'd like to ask, how are you doing today?
Good morning, Rory. I'm good. Thank you so much.
I hope you
How
are
are you?
well, Ibu. This is such a moment that we've been waiting for to know about gender equality and women proportion in workplace Indonesia. I'd like to hear it from you directly. So please start your presentation now, if you could.
Indeed. Thank you, Rory. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to commemorate our Kartini Day today. I would like to provide, the report from Census on Women in Executive Leadership Team of IDX200 companies. So globally, there has been a growing interest in the business case for advancing gender equality. The Indonesian B20 presidency commits to convey recommendations and policy action, including progressing women into the leadership position. The government can empower the business community to reduce the gender gap while being mindful of the diverse set of economies and population across the G20 countries. Our goal is that more women lead, participate in, and have access to enhance business and economic opportunities to advance sustainability and inclusive growth. Next slide, please. So the step has been made to document the progress in advancing gender equality or lack thereof. From December 2021 to March 2022, IBCW, IDX, and BOI research have made the first step to gain deeper insight into women leadership by performing the census on women in executive leadership team, or ELT, of IDX200 from 2019 to 2021. So cooperating with Accenture Indonesia and supported by the Australian government through investing in women and Catalyst, the top 200 companies of the IDX are the focus of this survey. The census replicated the similar activities done by Chief Executive Women Australia, who have done the census of women in executive leadership teams of Australia Stock Exchange 200 or ASX 200 since 2017 in collaboration with Bain & Co. and Spencer Stuart. In 2021, the census was expanded to ASX 300 and at the same time included additional analysis on gender diversity target. Next slide, please. Now we will see the information of the census. Next. So the study aimed to get an understanding of gender equality in the private sector and corporate leadership, especially among IDX 200 companies. This is the first step to mapping the gender composition within ELT team, while at the same time documenting the progress of gender equality within private sectors in Indonesia. While executive leadership team is mapped as the feeder for the CEO's role, the study also classified women's representation in line and functional role in the leadership team. Line roles is defined as the position that drive key commercial outcomes, usually with profit and loss responsibility. In contrast, functional roles refer to all other roles with no direct profit and loss responsibility. Next, please. So, despite all data of the IDX 200 being provided by IDX, still 100% of collected data is verified by using the annual and Q3 financial report of each company. A random selection of 20% companies is verified twice as part of the quality control of the process. The IDX 200 is defined as the 200 largest and most liquid stocks listed on the IDX by floating adjusted market capitalization as defined by IDX. As you can see here, that the criteria for the company to be included on IDX 200 is included in the period of January to October 2021. They are not being suspended, not included in the special monitoring board, must have the transaction during 2021. So these are the criteria of the companies. And the data collection and analysis by BOI Research, we are looking at, so it's being traced back from 2029 to 2021. Next, please. So we will see the key finding of the census. Next slide, please. The data is coming from IDX based on the top 200 listed companies. So the source is from 2019 to 2021. However, the list is based on the market activities in 2021, and we trace it back from 2019. As you can see on the screen here, total number of ELTs in IDX200 is reached 1,164 people in 2021, which is 85% of the executive considered as male. Next slide, please. Now, looking at the result of the 2021 census, there is still progress that can be made to promote women's representation in IDX 200 companies. Among the IDX 200 companies, 15% of ELT roles are held by women. Only 15%. This figure is unchanged during the whole period of 2019 to 2021. Similar to the ELTs, the number of the female CEOs in IDX 200 companies has remained unchanged too, with 8 CEOs since 2019. Using the target setting of 30% of women executive at the board level, in 2021, only 21% companies of IDX 200 have achieved gender balance. However, still half of IDX 200 companies only have less than 10% women executive to 0 in their board executive as of a total of 94 companies. So it's closely to 50% of the companies in IDX 200. They only have women less than 10% or even 0. Next slide, please. So dive deeper to the data, following the Chief Executive Women's method, we divide the data to 2 roles, which are line and functional roles. If the company, and what is considered as ELT is, if the company doesn't have CEO or managing directors, the executive chairs are included to the ELTs. There are line and functional role within ELT, distinguished by the core responsibility that they cover. As I have mentioned before, the roles is defined as a position that drive the key commercial outcomes, usually with profit and loss responsibility, while the functional roles refer to all other roles with no direct profit and loss responsibility. Next slide. So let's see the key findings of the census. The healthcare and consumer cycles are performing better when it comes to women's representation. Meanwhile, industry like basic materials, transportation, and infrastructure only have around 10% women executive. Line roles refer to the position that direct profit and loss responsibility. In this role, women executive only take about 10% since 2019. As the 4 functional roles refer to the without any direct and profit and loss responsibility, women executive in IDX 200 companies have around 19% functional roles. As the explanation on consumer cycles and non-cycles is that consumer cycles are the category of stocks that rely heavily on the business cycle and economic conditions. So the companies in consumer cycles included industries such as automotive, housing, entertainment, and retail. If we can have provided the example on the IDX 200, companies like S Hardware, Mitra Di Perkasa, or MNC Studio International. The non-cyclical stocks are companies from which people will continue to consume their products even during an economic downturn. These often include consumer staple goods, food, gasoline, utilities, and pharmaceutical or healthcare. The example of the IDX 200 companies are Indofood, Mayora, and Unilever. Next slide, please. looking deeper into the data, we will see first those corporates that has 30 more and more women executive in their ELTs. Next slide, please. So these are 41 companies that we see having more women, having minimum 30% of women representative on their ELTs. So as you can see here, some companies are even have 80% of women executive, while some companies also have, we call it as a perfect balance of 50-50. Some are close, and the other are at the threshold of 30%. Next slide. The remaining list of 41 companies that have more women in LTs in 2021. Also, in the orange color here on the right side of the tables, this is the list of companies that have women CEO in 2021. Next slide. Okay, next we will see another findings for these activities. Next slide. Here we can see that the 15% of ELT roles are held by women. This figure is unchanged during the whole period of 2019 to 2021. Consumer cycles, healthcare, and technology have the highest number of female executives compared to the other industry. Industries like infrastructure, transportation and logistics, and basic materials need to improve their gender diversity at the board level. As it is now, just 1 out of 10 executive women are, just 1 out of the 10 executive are women in these 3 industries. The recruitment process is crucial in determining the industry's gender diversity. Few female talents from early stage might result in female talent shortage on the upper level, especially on the ELTs. And we believe this is also part of the shortage on the women on the STEM skill for the to fill in the position as well. Next slide, please. As you can see here, that lines roles are positions that drive the key commercial outcomes and usually with profit and loss responsibility. Looking at these roles, a woman's presence is still underrepresented. Women executive hold just 10% of the lines roles. Looking further at the position, women executive most often take a deputy president director or a marketing and sales position. Since a deputy president director is often the next in line position to be the president director, this is, we could say, that the encouraging news for women leaders in IDX200 companies. There is a high possibility that this will increase women's chance of becoming CEO in the near future. Next slide. Now let's see the functional, the gender composition in the functional roles, which consists of other roles within the ELT with no profit and loss responsibility. In these roles, women are better represented in functional roles with 19% in 2021. This number is also stagnant, fluctuating from around 19% since 2019. There is an increase in women's executive representation in the strategic position. It's plus 23% compared to the previous year. Meanwhile, women representation in production roles dropped dramatically from 15% in 2019 to no female representation in the years after. Next slide, please. So in general, the healthcare and consumer cycles industry perform well in both lines and functional roles. One of the possible causes is the large supply of women executives in this industry. While in technology industry has many women executives in the functional roles, none of the women executives have aligned roles in technology industry. We believe the situation related to the lack of talent of women in STEM industry, especially in technology, since the line's role is still heavily required to have the skill or background of the industry. Next slide. As I have mentioned in the key findings, only 21% of IDX 200 companies have reached the gender balance by having a minimum 30% and more of women in leadership position. The number has not changed, at least for the last 3 years, while it is predicted will remain the same for the next 2 or 3 years. It is important to monitor the progress through census or the reporting mechanism in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Now we will see I think this is quite a specific case in Indonesia on the analysis of the gender balance. In general, both state-owned enterprise or BUMN and private companies are still need to diversify their gender ratio. However, when it comes to gender balance, we rate it as 30% or more female representation for more female executive in the leadership team. Private companies are performing better with 22% compared to its BUMN counterpart. Among the IDX 200 companies, those that are led by the female CEOs are clearly more inclusive to female executive compared to companies that led by the male CEO. As it is now, 5 out of 8 companies led by the female CEOs have 30% or more female executive, while half of the IDS company that are led by the male CEO still only have less than 10% of women executive in their leadership team. Next slide. So the companies without the female in ELTs, the percentage of companies without female in their ELTs remains the same every year. However, looking further, the number of companies is actually increasing by 6 companies in 2021. This needs to be considered a warning for developing gender diversity in IDX 200 companies. Industry with the highest number of companies with no female on their ELTs are consumer non-cyclicals, energy, property, and real estate. Next slide, please. So gender composition in the CEO position, this is relatively known, and the number is less than 10, I would say, that from 8 female CEOs in IDX 200 companies in 2021, we found only 8 female CEO. 4 CEOs came from line roles. This is, I think, in line with the theory that the ELTs is the feeder for the CEO's position. 1 came from functional roles. Unfortunately, 3 other CEOs remain unknown that until today, we don't have the information available just yet. Next slide, please. Here, we would like to specify on the follow-up study. So more women executive are in the deputy president director roles now. So an increased number on women CEOs are therefore very likely happen in the coming years. Further and continuous study is needed to capture this possible growth. So for the following study, we recommend to identify a better indicator to capture the relevancy of companies' performance and women leadership, continue the explorations of women's representation in each line and functional roles, and to ease the analysis process, we are in discussion with IDS as well to encourage the listed companies to first specify the executive position, Second, specify job description of the executive position. The third one, to improve the organizational structure in the annual report. The next one, please. So on improving the woman representation in IDX 200 companies, so woman representation in high specific industries such as healthcare and consumer cycles, since 2019, these two industries have more than 20% of women executive per year. So to this end, supply to women executive play a significant role in ensuring their representations. So we recommend that IDX can help this to make it better by first to encouraging the companies to establish a gender target setting. And then the second one, helping boost women CEO presence and the companies that directly have a gender balance. And the third one, providing mentoring and sponsorship for women executive to work on their path as successive CEOs. And the last one, encouraging the listed companies to do the gender reporting. So next slide. So this is the end of my presentation. I would say that the census is the preliminary activity for us to study the woman in leadership position in Indonesia. We understand that the result is still far from ideal, but at least we start somewhere here. The discussion to see further on the result is ongoing now, and we have several angles to look at, such as the relation between the gender balance in ELTs to the good corporate governance practices, which is leading to the business performance. So this is just the beginning, and we will continue our effort in advancing women into leadership position, especially in public listed companies. I would like to say thank you for IDX and BUI Research for making this happen. And thank you for your attention. And I return the screen to Rory. Rory, over to you.
Bu Maya, thanks so much. Please stay with us, Bu. I'd like to ask some questions to you. Okay, we know that this is a work in progress, but it's not shocking, isn't it? This is not shocking, but it's quite ironic. I've got some, important key points that you have delivered before. So among the IDX 200 companies, only 15% of the ELT or executive leadership team roles are held by women in 2021. And this figure has been stagnant since 2019. So there's no development in 3 years. And on any given year, there are only 8 CEOs in IDX 200, one of whom we'd like to interview later in our panel discussion, but there are only 8 out of 200 companies in Indonesia. This is so small.
And yes. And the number is less than 5%.
Exactly. And of the 19 newly appointed CEOs in 2021, only 2 women were appointed. And we've got another figure that 41 of the IDX 200 companies, or 21%, have reached gender balance in their ELT. Kudos to these 41 companies, or 21% of the IDX 200. And 30 companies, or 15%, are on their way in achieving gender balance with 20 to 30% women in the executive positions. Kudos to them as well. Work in progress. And still half of the IDX 200 companies only have less than 10% women in their ELTs, executive leadership teams. And last but not least, 94 companies, it's nearly half, right, do not have female executives at all in their executive team. I'd like to ask you, what makes this 94 companies do not have women at the ELT position? Is it because they see women as incapable, or there are no women capable to lead the companies? In this census, what do you find, Bu? Why these 94 companies do not have women in their top positions?
Well, I think from the discussion that we have earlier, that the shortage of talent of women into this position is the problem, and that's always been, I would say, the reason for companies to say that oh well, we cannot find the women with this kind of highly talents for this position and everything. So, but the effort just stopped there.
Right.
So I think it's more like if we don't find the talent, what should we do about it? So does the company have the effort to even create a talent pool for women in this position, or just looking out there, or just stand and do nothing about it? I
Right.
think that's the issue with that, because if you're looking, and I think there are a lot of women out there, they are very good and very capable for the job, but the problem is, do we does the company do enough effort in finding those talents?
Right.
And at the end of the day, is another issue is about the talent war out there to find the good number of candidates for the
Right.
position.
I think for a person and for an organization that is focusing on women empowerment and gender equality in the workforce, what is your recommendation to companies in Indonesia? We're not talking only about these 94 companies that are in the IDX200 list, but also all companies in Indonesia to have more women at the ELT position. What would you recommend? Invest more in women, invest more in their training and education, or what?
Well, I think the first and foremost, Rory, is for the companies to realize that men and women has a different life experience. Therefore, the way to treat the talent pool for both men and women, it probably needs to have a different approach. The competency and then the requirement for the position should the same for both men and women, but the way to acquire those talents should make a different approach or a unique approach to do it. I know it sounds a lot of work for companies to do that,
Yeah.
but it's actually not that difficult to do it. You just need to do a little extra active
Effort.
in finding that. Because we know that when it comes to self-confidence, a lot of women sometimes thinking that, oh, I'm not really good enough for this position, I'm not going to apply for this promotion, on those kind of things. And I think HR is having an important role here to see the talent between in their female talents, to see and push this. And another thing is that the sponsorship program for the companies is also important to see, because not only just mentoring,
Yeah.
but women to the executive position also needs a sponsor to help them navigate their their steps.
Yeah.
And I would say the executive leadership team, it's still the boys club, I would say. And the sponsor will help these women to navigate their way without losing their identity as a woman into this position. I
Wow.
think in the next discussion, one of our panelists will also talk about this.
Right, right. Ibu Maya, thank you very much. So I still have this in my mind that 94 companies in IDX200 do not have female executives at all in their executive teams. But on the bright side, there are 41 companies of the 200 companies in Indonesia, IDX200 companies, that have reached gender balance in their ELT. So once again, kudos to these 41 companies in the IDX200 list, and we hope other companies will follow suit, as this is a good example. And we all know that more women in the executive level and proportionate women in the executive level will make this company work better, more efficient, more progressive, and more aggressive as well, compared to if it's filled with majority of men. Once again, Bu Maya, thank you so much for this interesting finding, and good work, Bu, for the census of this IDX 200 women proportion. Thank you very much, Bu Maya.
Thank you, Rory.
All right, now that was Ibu Maya with some, as I said, not really shocking result, but it's quite ironic. But we always see the light at the end of the tunnel about women or gender equality in our workforce in Indonesian business landscape. Before we start the panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mrs. Sinta Kamdani, Chair B20 Indonesia 2022, who would like to deliver her insight on gender equality on Indonesia's business landscape. As a B20 chair, Ms. Sinta Kamdani is leading the official dialogue forum between G20 members and the global business community, and she is also the owner and chief executive officer of the Sintesa Group, an Indonesian group with 16 subsidiaries which operate in the property, energy, industrial products, and consumer products. She is responsible for the management and expansion of the group's business interests in Indonesia. And as a business person, Sinta is also involved in numerous business and social activities, including as the Vice Chairwoman of Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN, and Employers Association of Indonesia, or APindo, Executive Board of International Chamber of Commerce, ICC, President of Indonesia Business Council for Sustainable Development, or IBCSD, as well as founder of Indonesia Business Coalition for Women Empowerment, IBCW, and Angel Investment Network Indonesia, ANGIN, and the member of APAC Business Advisory Council, ABAC, Indonesia. Sinta Kamdani has received awards such as Forbes Asia's 50 Powerful Businesswomen from 2012, 2013, up to 2016, 30 Best CEOs by Business Indonesia Award in 2015. And in 2017, for your information, she was decorated as the commander of the Polar Star by King Carl XVI Gustav of Sweden and the commander of the Order of Leopold of Belgium. In 2019, Ms. Kamdani was awarded as Women Entrepreneur of the Year at the Asia Corporate Excellence and Sustainability Award, or ACES Award. Sinta Kamdani graduated from Barnard College in Columbia University, New York in 1989 and executive education at Harvard Business School, Boston, Massachusetts in 2002. So please welcome Mrs. Sinta Kamdani.
Ibu Bintang Puspayoga, the Minister of Women Empowerment and Child Protection, Mrs. Penny Williams, the Head of Mission into Australian Embassy, honorable panelists and speakers, Mr. Inano Jajadi, President of Indonesia Stock Exchange, Mrs. Virginie Barbot, the Head of Southeast Asia at NASDAQ, Market Technology, Julia Newton-Holmes, CEO of Investing in Women, Mrs. Febriani Eddy, the CEO of PT Vale Indonesia, Mrs. Risa E. Rustam, the Finance and Human Resources Director of IDX. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Before the panel session begins, I would like to once again remind us about how far along we are right now in terms of achieving the gender equality in the workplace. As it might have been mentioned previously, women's participation in the labor force in Indonesia is persistently lower than men's. As of 2020, there are only 53% of women compared to 82% of men in the Indonesia labor force. Furthermore, the census of women in executive leadership team in IDX200 companies has even shown that women representation both in the ELTs and CEO level remain unchanged since 2019. This is quite ironic considering the fact that global research has well established over the years how gender diversity benefits businesses in many ways. The ILO survey in 70 countries shows that workplace gender equality and diversity initiatives help in improving business outcomes. Some of the results are increased productivity and profitability, boosting greater creativity, innovation, and resilience, even enhance company and brand reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to expand our effort in order to level the playing field. Strong and effective actions are needed to remove the remaining persistent obstacle to gender equality. This is even more imperative for women at the top level of leadership in business. We should utilize our advantage by creating an ecosystem to support women talents in the company. We should also recognize the importance of measuring and monitoring the progress altogether. for which the gender reporting can be essential, especially in improving a company's accountability and transparency. Through Women in Business Action Council, B20 Indonesia is pushing the affirmative actions as policy recommendation to G20 leaders. One of our recommendations is encouraging countries to establish gender reporting mechanism for businesses, which can be embedded to companies' mandatory reporting. I hope, as the president of G20, Indonesia could provide example for other countries, especially emerging market countries, by having gender reporting mechanism as the follow-up for this census. I would like to encourage IDX to take further move by encouraging the members and public listed companies to add up the gender indicators in the reports. Ladies and gentlemen, the census of women in executive leadership team of IDX200 is in line with the focus of B20 through Women in Business Action Council to progressing women into leadership position. And I'm very proud to see the action from IDX, especially during the Indonesia presidency. I wish you all a fruitful discussion today, and may we continue to make progress toward achieving an equal and inclusive future. Like a wise woman once said, we are more powerful when we are empowered each other. Thank you.
That was Ms. Sinta Kamdani with a strong closing as a closing statement. We empower each other. And now we are moving to the panel discussion, and I'd like to introduce you to our three speakers. First and foremost is Mr. Inarno Jayadi, the CEO of Indonesia Stock Exchange. He was appointed as President Director of IDX at the annual general meeting of shareholders on June 29, 2018. And he started his career in the capital market in 1991. And previously, he served as Treasury Officer at PT Aspak Upindo Sekuritas, Director of PT Aspak Upindo Sekuritas, Director of PT Mitra Duta Sekuritas from 1997 to 1999, Director of PT Widadi Sekuritas, and President Director of PT Madani Sekuritas. Moreover, he held positions as President Director and subsequently Commissioner and President Commissioner of PT KPEI, as well as President Commissioner of PT May Bank. And his experience spans several organizations, which include serving as member of the Indonesia Securities Company Association, member of the Supervisory Board of the Indonesian Capital Market Professionals Association, and currently chairman of Indonesian Economists Association in Jakarta Raya since 2020. He earned his bachelor's degree in economics from Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta. Pak Inarno Jayadi, thank you so much for joining. I'd like to move on to the second speaker, just a bit of a background of Ms. Virginie Barbeau, Head of Southeast Asia Pacific and Managing Director of NASDAQ. As Head of Southeast Asia at NASDAQ Market Technology, Virginie Barbeau is responsible for NASDAQ Market Technology's business in the region, supporting market infrastructure operators and clients in other industries beyond capital markets in their technology journeys. Prior to joining NASDAQ, she spent 8 years at Deutsche Börse Group leading the market data and analytics services business for the German exchange operator. With her extensive experience in financial technology and market data, she is currently focused on developing NASDAQ's technology offering for new market segments in Singapore. And last but not least, one of the 8 CEOs that IDX200 currently has, Ms. Febriani Edi, the CEO of PT Vale Indonesia. She officially became President Director and Chief Executive Officer of PT Vale Indonesia Tbk, or PT Vale, after her appointment was approved by the annual general meeting of shareholders on April 29, 2021. So Febriani has been with Vale for nearly 14 years and has held important positions within the organization. Previously, she served as Deputy CEO and CFO of PT Vale. Prior to becoming director of PT Vale, Febriani Edi was assigned to work for Vale Base Metals Asia Pacific and Africa, based in Brisbane, Australia, for 2.5 years. Febriani Edi's responsibility covered base metals operation in Indonesia, Japan, China, Taiwan, and Africa. Prior to joining PT Vale, Febriani Edi worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers for 5.5 years in Jakarta and 1.5 years in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, during which Febriani Edi was engaged in various international projects in financial due diligence. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, before we start our panel discussion, we'd like to remind you once again, if you have questions, please do so participate in the Q&A session afterwards, after the panel discussion, and please drop your questions at the Q&A feature underneath your screen. We may start the discussion now. All right, Pak Inarno, Ibu Febri, Jenny, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Thank you, Rory.
Right, so for your information, ladies and gentlemen, Jenny is joining us from Singapore, while Pak In joining us from Jakarta. Ibu Febri, where are you at now, Bu?
Jakarta.
In Jakarta. So thank you so much, ladies, and also Pa In for joining our session today. So we are so lucky because we have one of the 8 CEOs in IDX200 list joining us today, which is Ibu Febriani Edi. So thank you so much for joining us. I'd like to ask to Pa Inarno first, Pa. So referring to the census result, it is not shocking, but it's quite ironic, but we see it as not as a discouragement. We see it as a encouragement starting point because gender equality is a work in progress, especially in Indonesia. And we are lucky enough to have a woman president earlier that, so many countries, including America, doesn't have yet. So what's your take and what's your opinion about the result, Pak?
Okay, thank you. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi. Selamat Hari Kartini for all. Yeah. Thank you. I think for the opinion about the result, yeah. I think if we see the only 15% of the executive leadership team, yeah, roles are held by women. The number of CEO has stayed stable since 2019. Yeah. 8 CEOs, yeah. But if we see the number of the companies gender balance, ELT has increased since 2019 until 2021, yeah, from 38 companies to 41 companies, and also the number of female ELTs also increased since 2019 until 2021 from 162 female to 175 female. The data shows us that there is an improvement in gender equality awareness and focus on the workplace. Yeah. We also found interesting that initial observation regarding gender balance company. We note that the return on equity of 41 gender balance companies are 11.4% in average, yeah, significantly higher compared to 159 companies which are not gender balanced with only delivered 3% in average. Yeah. And also the compliance perspective, gender balance companies also has a slightly better compliance index compared to not gender balanced companies when we observe them with our internal compliance measure. We realize.
All right. Pak Inarno, are you still with me? Right, I think we have a difficulties at the signal with Pak Inarno. I'd like to move first to Ibu Febriani while the team is fixing up the problem that we are experiencing right now. So Ibu Febriani, as I said, and as Ibu Maya said earlier regarding the census, that this is not shocking, but this is ironic, but it should be a starting point for us to see more women in the executive position, and you are one of them. You are one of the 8 CEOs that Indonesia has among the IDX200 list. What do you see, and what's your opinion regarding this census result, Bu? Ibu Febriani, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. What's your take on the census result, Bu Feb?
Yeah, I think the progress, there have been progress, but obviously not good enough. I think we need to do more active role. And I think every element of our society need to take charge of what happened and really move the needle up. I think from a company point of view, I wish to see more company taking more proactive role of promoting more gender equality in the organizations. And I feel like in Indonesia as alone, the awareness of these issues is not as high relative to others region in the world. So perhaps there's something that we could do more there. But having said that, I do see a stronger, I guess, ecosystem today, right? People talk more about it. There are more discussions and more programs and initiatives going forward that is happening and occurring around the globe. And I think company organizations like IPCBE, the B20, this will definitely help. Yeah, and IDX surely play a lot of roles, I think, significant role in promoting better.
And we are really appreciative to IDX for having this kind of discussion as well as census presentation so that we know our position right now regarding gender equality in the workforce. Before I continue with Ibu Feb, Pak In, are you already with me now? Yes, I think Pak Inano is still working on the audio. Before I ask Pak Inano, I'd like to continue to Ibu Feb, I think. So Ibu Feb, it is surprising that a company in nickel, mainly, that is heavily dominated by men, appointed a woman as their CEO. But I also see it as a major progress for women in C-suite level. Could you tell us the process that you've been through till you were appointed as the CEO? I heard that you have worked for PT Vale Indonesia for 14 years. How was it? What did you go through to sit at the top position at the company?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I started my career 14 years ago at the mid-manager level, and at the time, I think I was one of two female manager only out of, I think, around 50 that we have. So, and I was the one, my role required me to spend a lot of time on site. So often in meeting it on site, I was the only female manager sitting in, big boardrooms and a lot of other male managers. At that time, I think when I started my career, I feel the need to be like a man to survive in my industry.
A man to survive, bro.
To survive in the industry at that time. And so I tried to suppress my feelings, my emotions, and then, speak very loud, very direct. And even I was not very sport-oriented person, but I joined a rugby team.
So
Ibu
Febriani, sorry, before you continue, is it like the recipe for women to be able to compete with men, that they have to act like a man?
No, I'm sharing that because that's my experience in learning from my past, right? Until one point in time, one of my colleagues came to me and said, "Hey, February, Vale would have no problem finding a man in your role if they want to find a man. There's a reason why we need a woman in your role." So at that time, it got me thinking, and I started to change. I started to think, no, I bring different elements, different values, to the team. And for that reason, I need to be who I am. It's easy to say, but it's always difficult, right? In reality, when you are the only persons, the only women in the room.
Right.
But what I did was, I gradually built up my confidence. I start with a smaller group that I know really well. I'm very confident, exploring myself. And it goes the way, right? With the time comes, confidence built up, and I become more speak up today. And obviously, I think in Vale, we started a bit late than other organizations, but in 2019, globally, we commit to diversity inclusion. And since then, I think tone from the top was really, really helpful. I really, really needed. And then since that rollout of that commitment, we also, Vale Indonesia, rolled out our own diversity inclusion charter and commitment. I think that we all committed to create an environment free from harassment, bias, discriminations, right? And then have a lot of initiative on diversity inclusion. Since then, the environment totally changed. It helps. It helps a lot, I think, for us because it's creating an environment that better for us to nurture our talent. Having said that, I'd like to share that I think company has the obligations, of course, to create such environment, but we, the women, also play more significant role. I think with my own experience, when I was then I grew in the company and ultimately become the CFO because my background is accounting. And then when Paniko, the previous CEO that I succeeded last year, he retired now. Paniko at that time, one point in time said to me, "Hey, February, I think you have ability to be the next CEO. I think you have the potential to be the next CEO." So when he first raised it, my first reaction was, "No, I think you're crazy. I don't think I can do the job." The confidence, I think, is common problem among the female. But Paniko, he is a very good sponsor for me. So without his sponsorship, I would be in my positions today.
Right.
And then he continued to convince me that, no, we are here together, for sure you can, I work with you for years, I know you can do it. So that process going along, the confidence increased. And then I realized that I will not be a CEO like Nico, I will be a CEO on my own, right? So we both have our strength and weaknesses, but I'll bring different value to the table. So since then, I started to change my mind. Yeah, of course, if I picture myself as Nico, then I don't think I can be him.
Okay.
But if I picture myself with my own potential, I definitely can be a CEO, but it's a different CEO. But later, I think the next problem with most of the female is also motivational driver. So I also don't feel like a need to be the CEO because I feel like I'm already quite successful as a CFO. Why do I need to be a CEO? But there was one point in time where I reflect and I found the purpose, the strong purpose inside me that tells me that I do want to be the CEO.
Right.
Because when I look at Bali, Indonesia, we are a mining company, we operate in a very remote area. The life that we influences in our operation is huge, significant. 50 years ago when we started, there was nothing. There was nothing in the region, right, where we operate. So we built the infrastructure, the school, we provide electricity, and then all other hospital, not just doing the mining itself. And then when I look at our mining practices, our reclamations, which I think are among one of the benchmark in the country, the good things that we do, we can show to the world that mining doesn't have to be destructive. So at the end, I felt like if I become the CEO, I have the power to influence my company, to create better, to contribute better, and improve the life surrounding where we operate. So they gave me motivational driver to be wanting a CEO.
So
and then,
Ibu Feb, before we continue, wow, this is such an amazing story that you just shared. So apart from personal drive from the inside, I think it doesn't only apply to women, but every potential leaders need some sponsorship, need sponsors, need mentors to grow and to ensure themselves that they are ready to take the role as the leader. So, and you have proved that you have a very strong connection and also relationship with your previous CEO, and now you become CEO, and you have to assure yourself first that you are capable of doing that. And now you have been the CEO for, I think, more than 1 year leading Vale, right? So almost a year. I'd like to get back to Pa In. Pa In, are you still with us now?
Yes. Sorry for the internet connection.
That happens, Pa In, and that's okay. So I told Ibu Feb about my personal appreciation towards IDX of highlighting the census result and also striving to see more gender equality in our business landscape in Indonesia. But can you please tell us what made the IDX and IBC we created the census? What's the rationale behind it?
Thank you, Rory. IDX as a sustainable stock exchange member is fully committed to implement SDG goals, one of which is gender equality. Apart from being a role model in implementing gender equality within our company, we aim to encourage all our stakeholder in private sector, especially listed company, to participate in implementing good practices in supporting women empowerment. For this reason, we conduct IDX200 census to appreciate and encourage listed companies, our stakeholder, to increase opportunity for women to be involved in strategic decision making and actively participate in executive leadership teams. Yeah. According to Morgan Stanley research in 2019, and also the ILO survey conducted in 2019, and this morning the statement of Ibu Sukamdani agree that workplace gender equality and diversity initiative improve business outcome, resulting in increased productivity and profitability, increase in ability to attract and retain talent, greater creativity, innovation, resilience, enhanced company and brand reputation, and also better ability to gauge consumer interest and demand. So therefore, when a company put more attention to sustainability, especially to gender equality, they are not expecting short-term performance, but also long-term performance, which will be more beneficial to investor.
Right.
Back to you, Rory.
So thank you, Pak In, for the explanation, and we do really appreciate about this initiative and to shed light on the women proportion on our business landscape in Indonesia. I'd like to move now to Ginny. So Ginny, mirroring to the census result, and also you as a woman leader sometimes. And as Ibu Febriani earlier told us that there are many obstacles for women to achieve the top position in a company. It's not only the outside factors like maybe the gender inequality mindset of the company owners or company leaders beforehand, but then also men tend to look down on women at some cases, not every man, but many men look down on women. And as well as internal fighting between, between women themselves. Like, can I do this? Can I do that? Am I able? Am I capable to lead the team? So, as a woman leader, what kind of ecosystem have you created in your company, Ginny? Maybe you can share on that.
Thank you very much for having me. Well, actually, I can't take credit for for actually creating the culture at NASDAQ, but maybe I can share what our leadership team has actually been contributing to do. So I think it really starts from home, and I think all the great speakers that I've actually highlighted today, it's all about building a culture that welcomes diversity and ultimately create an environment where all feel connected and empowered to succeed. So toward this objective, our organization has made a lot of efforts to identify, to invest, and monitor the approach that would help us to advance priorities. So what we have done is we have identified 3 main priorities that are strategic to our business and really make it of drive and imperative. We really believe these are really contributing to the success to our workforce today, the workplace and also the marketplace ultimately. So 3 priorities, we're talking about diversity, equity, and culture. And if you allow me, I'll just dive into this very quickly for you. So diversity, what does that mean? It means that we practice the inclusion of people and range from different social backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds, genders, and sexual orientation. So it's really looking at diversity as the larger sense. Then equity, it means that we want to have a state where everyone, regardless of their background, has a level playing field. And it means that the workplace should allow for all to reach their full potential. And the last one is culture. It means that we should create an environment that has values, that appreciates and welcome all employees, and that's regardless of their background, and it really rooted into NASDAQ values. So we have made a lot of efforts, and our human resources have invested a lot into human capital. I think that's really important because it just gives us a real competitive advantage because it creates advantages for our clients, for the team, for the product, the services, and the solutions, and the way we approach the marketplace.
Right. So, Ginny, we have heard the saying that if you put more women on the leadership roles, then companies would be more efficient, would be more progressive, would be more profitable. Can you explain why, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, research has shown time and time again that investing in diversity creates a better company return on investment. It's just, I think there's been a few research, not only from McKinsey, that said that companies with more diverse executives have 30% more likely to see above average profits. So this is really highlighting that diversity and inclusion really begin in the boardroom, and it makes actually a big impact on your bottom line.
Right. So this is a very interesting regulation at NASDAQ, regulation number 5605, that it requires companies to have at least 2 diverse board members or to explain the company's reasons for not meeting the diversity objective. What is actually the background behind this? And is it like legally binding, or what is the consequences if a company in the NASDAQ list does not meet these requirements of having at least 2 member of executive boards?
Thank you. So the NASDAQ board diversity rule was approved by the SEC in August 21. And what it is, it's a disclosure standard, which is designed to encourage the minimum board diversity objective for companies and to provide stakeholders with consistent, comparable disclosure concerning the company current board position. So it's very simple. It has mainly 2 main guidelines. The first one for the companies and the boards to publicly disclose at board level the diversity statistics, and we're using standardized templates for that. We also encourage the boards to explain or why they do not have at least 2 diverse directors. So it's a rule. It provides flexibility also for smaller reporting companies and foreign issuers. So it's a guideline. We're not gonna, it started, I think, in January this year, and we're now in April, and we're gonna have the first reports coming through. We have done a lot of education around this for making sure that our companies listed on NASDAQ understand and what we're trying to achieve, and explain how this could potentially impact them.
Right. Okay. All right, Jenny, thanks so much. I'd like to move back to Ibu Feb. So, Ibu Feb, as a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier and obstacles for you to achieve your top position and for you to do your day-to-day activities? Have you ever experienced a gender-related pushback in your career, and how you overcome that?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll share a bit how I became the CEO. I think that the first questions, but then connect to these questions, right? But Nico, the previous CEO that I succeeded, right? When he first proposed my name as potential candidate, he got a lot of pushback from the board. I think at that time, many years ago, the first reaction was, she's too young, she doesn't have the experience, she's too emotional. There's a lot of this kind of comment and pushback. So at the end, he proposed, okay, let's hire international professional assessor firm to assess the candidate, right? All the candidates, and they named me as a preferred candidate. So even after that process, there was a lot of pushback still. Now we think that we need a bit of time, let's digest a little bit, let's see how she progresses in the next couple of years. So there is this kind of, I think, pushback sometimes happen, right? But again, sponsorship in my case is very important, right? But you can play a central role in convincing the stakeholders, the shareholders, and she can do the job, right? And then from my side, obviously, I got a lot of support from him. After I became the CEO, obviously, it's journey, right? So I still feel the challenge. So initially, at my very early time as a CEO, I attended the global forum where we have the CEO from a lot of operations together. At that time, I think my personal challenge was I felt unheard, right? Because I felt like I was so different than the rest because I was the only female, but not only that, I was the only non-engineer. I think the rest was engineer.
Wow.
So yeah, and then I felt like it was very difficult to catch up with the conversation because it's very technical, it's very operation driven. So to the point that I felt, okay, there was one very strong CEO. So I approached him and things that maybe he can coach me. And then when I asked his feedback, I said, maybe you can help me in this journey. And his suggestion was go and get engineering courses or degree. So I was immediately shut down. So I felt like, what, really? You expect me to take engineering degree? Then I reflect on it for a while, and I built my confidence. I get back to him. No, I don't think so. I disagree. I don't think I need to take engineering degree to be a CEO. So I told him that I'm different than you. I will bring my own strengths and weaknesses, and I'll be the CEO of my own. So I'm not going to be CEO like you, but I will bring a different type of CEO. So, and since then, you know, I look at the conversations are very technical, operations minded and driven. So I gave feedback to the group. I said, I feel like I need to share with you how I feel about the meeting. And I felt the meeting was very technical driven. And I felt like, you know, where is ESG conversation, right? ESG is our top priorities, but we hardly talk about it. So, and then the group CEO listened to it and he said, I think you got the point. Okay, let's change the agenda. So I think the agenda started to change. We have more rich discussions. We have talk about not just operations, but a lot of other stuff. I guess for Indonesia, country like us, right? The non-technical issues often more dominant than technical issues.
Right.
So since then, the discussions becomes very rich, and I think I found a lot of value. I can create a lot of value, but at the same time, I think my peers also felt like they can learn a lot of different ways of dealing with issues from Indonesia that they can apply across the board.
Right. So Ibu Feb, you didn't take the engineering degree, right? So what have you done?
No.
Certainly no, yes. So what have you done to prove them wrong, that you can be your own version of CEO, Ibu? What have you done?
No, as I mentioned, that I said to them that let's change the conversation. Let's change the agenda. Because if the agenda is only talking about operation, then I should bring my COO. It's not me, the CEO. So then they agree, right? I think the group CEO said, okay, you got the point. Let's change the agenda. So we now have more broader topic. Right. As a company, as I mentioned before, right, non-technical issues are more dominant in some cases.
Okay. So according to the census, among IDX200 companies, 15% of the ELT or executive leadership team roles are held by women in 2021. But Indeed mentioned that actually in a number of companies that has reached the gender equality proportion has increased from 38 companies to 41 companies as of 2021. But I'm asking you about the plan for IDX, which in regards to achieve, better gender equality level in our business landscape in Indonesia. What would IDX do?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think IDX will support increased representation of women in leadership position within a company by increasing stakeholder awareness through activities that raise the topic of gender equality. Yeah. Number two is encouraging our member and public listed companies to be more transparent in reporting their gender situation through gender reporting mechanism that we have planned to be conducted in the next few weeks. And the third one is increasing cooperation with related parties nationally and internationally to promote women advancement in leadership position, including within IDX itself. Back to you, Rory.
Depends on, prerogative rights of the company to have women or not, right? But we have seen that more women in the leadership roles, it means, or it translates to more efficient, more effective, more profitable companies. What will IDX do to influence companies, especially under the IDX200, to have more women at the ELT level, Pak?
Well, I think since gender equality issues is quite new in Indonesia, and regarding to the result of IDX census, which give us a snapshot about the implementation of gender equality in private sectors, I think I think in the future, when the awareness of understanding of gender equality get higher, like in the US, or where having a party in board becoming social pressure for the company, we can consider having women leadership related regulation. But it is in the future. Yeah. We also hope that the woman talent in Indonesia to have more readiness for taking higher and more strategic responsible in executive role. Back to
Right.
you, Rory.
Right. So I'd like to dig deeper into what Ginny has had to say about the NASDAQ regulation that requires a company to have at least 2 diverse board members. So Ginny, the diversity includes not only gender, but also the color of the skin, the sexual preference, and what else to achieve this, at least 2 executive board members?
It's all about diversity. Diversity means not all the same. So it could be age, it could be many, many elements. The idea is to make companies understand that their board should not have a unified color. Whether it's purple, blue, or green, it doesn't matter. It should not be just one color. It should have a good balance, because when decisions are made by the boards, balance is important. You need to actually make sure that all the voices are heard. And it's even better for companies who have social responsibilities. They do need to represent the variety of their customers, and customers come in all shapes and forms. So it's just a matter of representing how the world looks like. It's just simple as that. Going back to basics.
So for companies who haven't achieved this target, what do they say to the public? Why don't they have at least 2 diverse board members? What do they say?
I think it's actually there are a lot of reasons, and you have to forgive me, I haven't seen the results because it's actually a little bit far from my remit. And just remember, the rule was introduced as of June, and we're only April, so we will see the results fairly quickly there. But this is about explaining and marketing the idea, number one, and number two, helping them to build a pipeline. So we have a lot of services associated with it and partners, and I would encourage you to look on our website where those partners will help the boards to choose more diversity, any members that they would want to welcome. So it's more about explanation. This is a rule, of course, but it's not about taking the legal approach. It's about really encompassing and actually welcome more diversity. That's what this rule is about.
Right. So there's no legal consequences, but it's more how to encourage companies to have more diversity in their company. So before I move to Ibu Feb, how's the implementation of the rule? Is there any obstacles for companies to reach this diverse ELT position?
I personally don't think they are, and we've done a lot of effort and a lot of education to explain to the board members the advantages of enlarging and promote diversity. So again, a lot of education, and it really starts from home. We started by NASDAQ with our own employees. We do have a female CEO, Adina Friedman, and in the board we also have female representative as well. So it starts from home. Just leading by example, I guess, is the first start.
Right. I'd like to move back to Ibu Febriani. Ibu Feb, so this may sound subjective, but in your opinion, why companies need to have more women in their BOD or ELT positions?
Yeah, no, thank you. For Valley point of view and my personal point of view, including my experience, there's a lot of value and benefit. So for Valley, having more female, it's not just the right things to do, but it is business necessity. Because we believe that with more diversity, we talk about not women today, but it's more than just women. But having more diverse, board members, you make better decision-making process, because you have with a more diverse board, right? You have more diverse perspective, you have more rich debate, you have more angle to look at, and therefore your decision-making process will be more rich, and the decision will relatively be better. For instance, the example that I mentioned before, our conversations like to be previously very much dominated by operations only, very technical. But then having me on board, it forced the conversations to change, because I like to talk about broader business. And then indeed, right, our biggest challenge is not just technical, but also non-technical. So having that really broad perspective and more discussion. So for us, so I think it's better decision making, and also from a risk management point of view, it's better because with a diverse board, you have a diverse perspective and view. You can look at one problem from multiple angles. Therefore, your risk management practice will be also better. And there are a lot more other things, right? With more diverse people in the room, you have more innovative probability of having more innovative discussions and outcome, rather than one single solutions, for the similar cases. So I think these are few examples out of many, many examples that we believe diversity inclusion is a business necessity, and it will make the company stronger and better. And this will be reflected in the company performance and bottom line.
So, Bu Feb, how many women are there in the ELT position in Vale Indonesia, Bu?
In the board level, just me.
In the board level, just you.
And then one below me, BOD -1, only one also. And then BOD -2, I think we have made some progress, but still very,
All right.
very.
Would you do anything strategically to put more women at the BOD level?
Yeah, we have our overall diversity inclusions program. We don't believe in shortcut. I think it's a process that we need to go through, right? And it's no single solution. There is no, I think this is multiple factors, and we need to look at the entire employee life cycle. So for us, PT Vale, for instance, we only have, unfortunately, 8% women in our workforce. So we are still very much lagging, right? And then if I look at the data really matters now. If you look at the entire data, we have problem in every process, every single process of the employee life cycle. So first, for instance, during recruitment, we only have 11% female applying, right? So even if you don't apply any standard, you accept everything, still only 11%. Then we start to look at it and why we only have 11%. And then we decided to take more proactive action. So during recruitment today, for instance, I will personally go with HR to, university to campaign that mining industry today is different than yesterday. We now more welcome to female. We will create environment that is safe for women to advance in the mining industry in our company. So I think changing the face of the company too. Our publications now is more gender friendly. In our recruitment process, also more gender friendly. So that's on the recruitment side. Then if they join the company and then they leave, what's the point? Right? You need to look at how to retain them. Yeah. So number one, McKinsey has data and survey globally, number one reason why women left mining industry is because no career advancement. So today we have talent analytics, which is a tool that we developed to provide more visibility of our talents from a lot of different perspectives, from gender, local talents, people with disability. Having the data matters because then you have visibility and you can manage, you can focus better your actions and your targeted program. So now with that talent analytics, I have visibility of how many females that we think are really high potential. And I was quite surprised to see quite a few have even the potential to be double, two bandwidth above the level that they are today, which means these female are the spotlight, right? We need to pay attention and focus program, develop and nurture them so they can grow and advance in the company quickly. And then we also need to consider, I think in Asia and Indonesia, similar, right? There is a social pressure also for female more that we need to take care of family, right? A lot of times goes into managing family. So in Bali, we focus on creating flexible work arrangement. And thanks to pandemic, actually, COVID actually shows us what was not possible is possible today. So we have decided to forever, permanently, I think, work from home. So the office today is converted into a hub. So we still meet, but it's not in the past, right? So meet in the hub, for coordinations, for engagement.
So, hang on, Bu, hang on. So until when will the work from home regulation be applied? Is it going to be forever for Vale?
At this point, yes.
At this point, yes. All right. So I'd like to have a more diverse insight from Pak In, probably, about why we should put more women at the BOD level, Pak. In your opinion, you have Bu Risa at least as the CFO and also HR chief at the IDX, why we need to put more women at the BOD level, Pak In? I think we have difficulties in audio. Hang on, Pak In. Let us get the audio on track.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, now you're
Thank
with
you,
us.
please.
Pak In, please.
Okay. Okay, I think I agree with Ibu Febriani, the statement that if we diversify to make decision-making process is more complete. Yeah. So I think more diversify is it's better for the decision-making process.
Right.
Mhm.
So, okay, now to Ginny, the same question, Ginny, why we need to put more women on the ELT or BOD level?
Because women are awesome. That's the simple answer. But no, more seriously, more seriously, yeah. It's about reflecting. It's about just having a reflection on how the world today is. And this is just my personal belief. You want to actually enlarge your clientele. You want to actually reach out to new customers. Your new customers will have many shapes and forms, and it will probably not have the same shape and form that your current board is. So if you have representation from diverse backgrounds and diverse age, diverse ethnicities and sexual preferences, it will actually only make your decision-making process better. You always have, otherwise you actually, and this is my belief as well, is that you fall into a sort of cycle where everybody agrees with each other, everybody likes status quo, no one is challenging, and it's almost a killer for innovation. No one is going to challenge decision-making processes. And you do need those conversations to happen at the board level, so they trickle down to your human capital.
Right. That is excellent. That is so on point. So thank you, Ginny. Now I'd like to move to the Q&A session. There are plenty questions coming in to the Q&A feature. Once again, I'd like to remind you, if you have a question in mind, please do drop your question in the Q&A feature underneath your screen. I'd like to start off with this first question, or I have to translate it into English first. I'd like to ask, why is it so difficult to encourage women participation to have a career in an industry? Oh, hang on, bro. Can you please get back to the question list? Yes. And what is the biggest obstacle to create gender balance in an industry? Maybe this question is for Ibu Febrian, if you could share your insight, Bu.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is multiple factors. Yeah. So I mentioned before in our cases, right? The interest for female to join mining industry is still very low. As I mentioned before, in our organizations, only 11% participants, only 11% female when apply in our recruitment process, right? So I think because the mining industry itself has a still very masculine image. That's why what we do in Valley is to promote and campaign and to show different faces, right? To show that today mining industry is very different than before. You know, we welcome female, we want more female. We love to have more female joining our organizations, and we believe with more female, mining industry can be a better industry for the world. And then, of course, I think. And then the second also, as I mentioned, right, it's not just about recruiting them, but also when they have joined the company, we need to be able to see how women advance in the career. And at the same time, managing the society expectation, because women in our countries, and also I think relatively still, required and expected to spend a lot of time for household works.
All right. So I'd like to get back to Gina. I think, can you please scroll up? This is, scroll up, bro. Up. This is the same question for Ginny. Why is it so difficult to encourage women participation in an industry, Ginny? And what is the biggest obstacles? So Ibu Febriani Ariel told us that, hey, mining is now different, and they have to break the stigma of mining industry. And it also applies to STEM, right? Science, engineering, and also mathematics. What is the biggest obstacles to have equal gender proportion in an industry, in your opinion, Ginny?
Sure. And this is a question that it deserves its own panel, actually. It's not a black and white answer, unfortunately. And if there was a simple answer, I think all of us would already have implemented it within our teams. But to go back to your point, it's all about building a pipeline. It's all about building the confidence that actually women could consider those items. And it's not about why we don't have enough women. It's more about let's just bring them to the conversation and just actually change the dialogue and bring them forward. It's about encouraging mentoring, for example, and it's about what actions could you do to foster that talent and that pipeline to increase forward. Because unfortunately, the pandemic has showed us that women going back to the workplace have been more difficult. Obviously, a lot of them are carers or caregivers for families. They're mothers. They have to take care of sometimes the sick ones, the elderly, the kids. So how do you enlarge that? Well, maybe having a committee. This is my personal belief. Looking at sort of initiatives that you can do to encourage female and coming into to your workplace or the company. But it starts really by fostering also a culture. It's about spreading the good words internally and actually just building up, as we have discussed before.
So how do you, as leader of NASDAQ in Southeast Asia and also Pacific, assure that or make companies believe that, hey, by having women, despite all the obstacles, for example, like maternity leave and other challenges that faced by women, that, hey, you need to have more women on your BOD level. How do you assure them?
Again, I can only mention for what it starts from us. It's just by really trying to cast the larger net when it comes to candidates, looking and just try to look for candidates in maybe not obvious places and have a look at the competencies and maybe just build their confidence up. Having a mentoring system internally is a good way to start. But whereas it comes to direct companies to have a larger board, we have a lot of partners that help us to guide those companies throughout the decision-making process. And I can put the link into the chat to show online some of the initiatives that we have.
Please do. Yes, please do. So thank you, Jeannie. Before we move forward with the second question, I'd like to ask Pak In about NASDAQ's initiative that requires at least 2 members of BODs to be, to be a diverse background. So will IDX follow NASDAQ's steps in terms of drafting a regulation related to women leadership for its members, Pak? Pak In, your audio is not on. Yes.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Rory. Since sustainability issues, including gender equality, is quite new in Indonesia, and regarding to the result of IDX census, I think it is for us. It is not mandatory. Yeah, it is. I think it's better for us to implement pull approach rather than push approach to encourage women leadership by showing them benefit having gender diversity in the ELTs, to improve commercial advantage and branding and their bottom line.
Right. So I think this is also in line with what NASDAQ has done so far about not pushing, in a legally binding push, but it's more about encouraging and giving education to companies why you need to invest more in women and put women at the helm of the companies. Pak In, thank you so much. And we'd like to move forward to the second question. I'd like to ask this for Ibu Feb first. Do you think that the census, by mentioning the companies that have women CEO, by mentioning the companies that have reached the proportionate number of women at the BOD level, would actually increase the competitiveness of the company? We see that there are 41 companies in IDX200 that have reached the gender equality level. Would this increase the competitiveness of the company, Bu?
I think it definitely helps, yeah, but it alone will not be sufficient.
All right. How does it help?
Yeah, I guess it's, I think as mentioned before, there are a lot of benefits of that we see having more gender balanced organizations, right? Result and every result correlated. A lot of data and statistics suggest that. I think it will improve. Definitely showing that will give impressions. And then second, I think it would also probably attract more female talents, right? When they look at it, okay, this is a company that really like to grow female, create more opportunity that will attract more talents to join the company. And yeah, I think that's among little things that would definitely add value.
Jenny, what's your take on this? Would that be competitive for public listed companies for the IBC we to disclose, hey, these are 41 companies that have reached the women or gender equality minimum level, or is it going to be vice versa?
No, I think it's definitely an advantage, making sure that companies are shown that they're doing really good work on productivity. But you just have to be pragmatic. We're doing this to advance the bottom line as well. It has a positive effect on the bottom line. And that message should also just come across from many companies. But of course, we need to promote the ones that are actually advancing the message, and we need to make sure that we support them as well in their endeavors.
Right. I'd like to move on to the next question. This is a very interesting question for Vale Indonesia. So, Bu Febri, many studies have shown positive correlation between gender diversity in board and companies' performance. And, as we all know, Inco's stock, because I'm one of the investors as well, I know it for sure. So, Inco's stock price has risen around 40% since your appointment. Any thoughts about it?
No, I would not claim that was because of me. Look, my stock company, my company shares a price are highly correlated with global nickel price. So at the same time, global nickel price increased significantly, right? So hopefully I did bring some value.
So, but what have you done in the past almost 1 year, Bu, so that the public's trust is gained by Vale? What have you done? What kind of breakthrough you have done and bring to the table?
Yeah, so I think next few days that will be 1 year, 12 months. So it's a good time to reflect what I've done. So I think on day one, when I took over the role, I have announced that PT Vale is entering a new era. We will grow our business aggressively, but driven by our noble purpose. And you will see this year, hopefully we have many announcements and we're making progress for a lot of things that has been stalled for years. Of course, I can't share it here, but you will see later on. And then the second point that I have publicly mentioned, and we're serious about it, is about our low carbon commitment. So I joined COP26 in Glasgow, and at that time I announced publicly our ambitions and our roadmap. So we will follow Paris Agreement. We will reduce our Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions by 30% in 2030, and then achieving net zero in 2050. And since then, I took it seriously. And I think PTVI, we have also a very strong reputation in ESG practices. However, we're not very good in promoting ourselves. So my job is also to promote, I think, our ESG practices, not so much for PT Vale alone, but also to try to influence the mining industry in Indonesia.
Right.
As you know, nickel today is a hot commodity. Everyone talks about nickel. A lot of foreign investors to Indonesia for nickel because of the global decarbonizations, because transitions to a greener energy require a lot of metal. And among those critical metals is nickel. And for that reason, a lot of investors came to Indonesia. But I think through this opportunity also, I will reinforce again PTVI position that the nickel is needed for the global decarbonization. For that, because we are the solutions for decarbonizations, the entire supply chains from the mining beginning upstream, from the mining until the end product must be coming from sustainable process.
Right.
Therefore, reducing carbon is extremely important for Vale Indonesia and we like to take a lead in that position.
And nickel is one of the solutions for cleaner engine or cleaner emission, as it
Energy,
is going to be
yeah.
used for electric vehicles, right, in the future. That's
Electric,
why Indonesia is quite optimistic about that, to become one of the centers in the world of nickel and electric car battery. So Ibu Feb, talking about gender equality, we are faced with stigma, right? And you have to go on tour from one campus to another to make sure that, hey, university students, that mining has changed. The mining landscape in Indonesia has changed. So what kind of stigma in the mining industry that you are trying to break?
That mining is a privilege for men. I think mining today is very different. I mean, in the past, 200, 300 years ago, of course, everything is all done by manual labor, right? So that gave a competitive advantage probably to men. But today, with technological advancements, it's very different. And then that's just one aspect, like campaigning the image of, to make the industry face more women friendly. But I think inside the organization itself, it's very important also to break the unconscious bias. Like we're applying the same standard and same performance and potential assessment system, but then yet how come there are not many women came forward, right? There are a lot of unconscious bias happening, and therefore I think our focus in our organization is also to break those unconscious biases. And harassment, as you know, is also an issue that we need to publicly talk about it and address about it, because if you don't talk about it, you will never try to address it, right? So I think those two fronts are very important also in organizations to bring that good environment, nurturing environment for female to grow. I'd like to also share, to be honest, we have a lot of issues still. Even in Vale Indonesia 2 years ago when we started, there's a lot of basic facilities are not available for female, unfortunately. So how can we say that we're friendly to female when basic facilities are not available? So in 1 year, up that mess. And then we start looking at our standard, our policy, and now we're focusing a lot on the education. I know we also have aspirational target, like we have aspirational target of recruiting certain amount of female in our organization. Having said that, I think I reflect on it. Our progress has not been very good, but I reflect on it, and I think recently we discussed at our executive level as well. We want to really focus on the why. I think if we get the why right and you get the motivation right, and then build that, nurture that across our leadership team, and then ultimately, obviously, our entire workforce, then you have that strong motivational drivers to really break and bring the new, hopefully, better statistics and
hopefully
business result.
Right, and hopefully much higher applicants or those who are interested to apply to your company, more than 11%. For women, and we are looking forward to see more of that. So let's move to the next question. I'd like to ask to Ginny, what should companies do, Ginny, to support more women into leadership, in your opinion?
Okay, so my humble opinion, I think you should actually take really good stock of Ibu Febriani and actually give a chance to look already internally, look at the staff that you have and seeing who could be promoted, and have a really through the diversity prism glasses and seeing, because you want to nominate leaders for the leaders that they can be tomorrow, not the leaders there today. It's about fostering talent. And if you do that, you will already be recompensating, because it will foster loyalty. It will foster also making sure that whether a man or woman, they will actually just do their best. Ibu Fabiani is the best example. You don't need to just have someone who is already fitting the box. Look outside the box and seeing where you can fit. From a CFO to a CEO, it is a big jump, but obviously it's been a successful one. And that's the kind of move you want to encourage laterally within your companies.
Right. I'd like to move to Pa In. Pa In, a simple question. Are there any regulations or work ethics that are supportive towards women at the IDX, Pa? What kind of regulation that supports women in your company, Pa?
Okay, before I answer that question, I like the statement of Ibu Febriani. Yeah? There is no shortcut, yeah, for women equality. But, but in IDX, for example, yeah, as we are a role model for the all of our stakeholder, yeah. Right now, we are already from the all employees, 43% is female. So in the near future, we hope that there are more BOD or CEOs in female. Yeah, this is the record high. Yeah, then and we push that in the future there are more female in our organization. And to answer your question about the regulation, I think Bu Icha can explain about that. Probably Bu Icha can help. No, please.
Bu Icha, can you
For the
join us, Bu, in the forum? Would that be possible?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question again,
Is there
Roy?
any regulation or any provision that are supportive towards women at ID Expo?
Oh, we have plenty actually. We try to make sure, and we are doing a lot of things to make so that women felt supportive. For example, we provide child daycare. Before pandemic actually, because now we are in hybrid arrangement. So we only work in the office 1 week in a month. So moms are at home more. But before that, we have daycare for women employees whose nannies and maids are pulang kampung, mudik, you know, so
Homecoming,
that
yeah.
and so that they can work comfortably in the office. And we also provide nursing room for breastfeeding employees, and we provide assistance programs for issues like harassment, for example. They can talk to a professional, which we provide for free.
Right.
Because sometimes when you talk to a friend or family members, you do not really feel that they will not maintain confidentiality. But if you speak to a professional, you can be sure that it will be confidential, and because it's their job, it's more objective. The view is more objective.
Right.
We also provide more. It's not just for the ladies actually. For our male employees, we have also increased their paternity leave from, I think it's from 3 days to 5 days.
Right.
So that they can spend more time with their wives when the wives gives birth. And what else do we have? Those are a few things that I think. Oh yeah, we also have the whistleblower system that female employees can also use if there is a harassment or anything that is that should be reported. But any issues. It's not just harassment actually.
Right.
Sexually or verbally, or any issues that they are not feeling comfortable with. They can always use the WBS to report, and it will be handled by a third party, independent third party, and then it will go to the right channel within the organization, within IDX.
Wow.
You know, can be me as human capital chief, or it can go to the Pak Inarno. It depends on the issues actually. But we do have more than a few things in place to make sure that our employees, especially women employees, feel safe to work, and they know where to go if they need to speak about something confidential or to report something that they think is not right, or so I think I spent enough time talking already.
Wow,
So
thank you.
those are just a few examples.
Right, thank you, Ibu Risa. So I think IDX is so lucky because according to Pa In, there are 43% of female at the IDX, and we have Human Capital Chief Ibu Risa that really understands what women need, especially in the workplace. So thank you so much, Ibu Risa, for sharing. So this is going to be the last questions for each of you, Pa In, Ibu Feb, and also Ginny. What would you say, Ginny, to fellow women to have the courage, to have the confidence to take a central role in the leadership position in a company?
Thank you. I think it just can be summarized into one word, dare. Dare to show your competence, dare to raise your voice, and dare to actually make sure that you also empower your fellow women.
That you also empower fellow women. That's really important. Ginny, thank you so much. I'd like to move to Ibu Febriani. Ibu Febriani, what would you say to fellow women to have confidence and also courage to take the BOD position?
Don't be afraid of failure or making mistake. I think that's a great source of learning. So with that in mind, always continues to improve yourself and learn and take the opportunity that comes in front of you. If there is no opportunity, create one for yourself.
All right, last but not least, I'd like to move to Pa In. Pa In, what would you say to companies under the IDX to realize that, hey, you need more women at the ELT or BOD level?
Yes. Okay, more confident for all of women and take every chance. And for us in IDX, we give equal chance, equal opportunity for male and woman. It's open for all.
Right.
Who is qualified.
All right, so give more opportunity and chance for women, or no matter what your background is, everyone has the same opportunity to advance. So I'd like to give a bit of a highlight of what we have discussed today. So about the company's culture, this is a very interesting point from Ginny and also from NASDAQ, that the company should have 3 principles: diversity, equity, and also culture. And having more women on ELT, executive leadership team position, is business necessity, according to Ibu Febriani. So this is not a, a business makeup, not sugarcoating the company, but this is a business necessity to have more women on the ELT position. And the decision-making process will be much richer by having more women on the BOD level. And businesses facing different kind of customers, as Pa In said, so different approach is needed. More women will create more profitable, efficient, and more progressive business output. Ibu Febri, Ginny, Pak Inarno, thanks so much for your participation. And hopefully today's discussion will benefit our audience, and some companies or many companies would learn from our today's census presentation and also discussion today. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, before we wrap up our today's event, we would like to hear the conclusion of our discussion today, and please welcome Dr. Julia Newton-Ho, CEO of Investing in Women. As CEO of Investing in Women, Dr. Julia is responsible for the successful delivery of all aspects of the program. Dr. Julia joined Investing in Women in November 2016 after spending 9 years as CEO of CARE Australia, one of Australia's largest humanitarian and development organizations. Over her career in international development, Dr. Julia has held various senior positions, including Assistant Director General in AusAid and Advisor at the Board of the World Bank. Dr. Julia, the screen is yours. Dr. Julia, how are you doing?
I'm really well, Rory. Thank you.
So thank you so much for your participation, and we're looking forward to the conclusion that you have on your side.
Well, thank you. And it's really a great pleasure and honor to participate. And what a fascinating morning. What a wonderful discussion that you've facilitated today, Rory. So let me recognize the wonderful speakers that have been at this event, the brilliant panelists, and also the participants for some really insightful questions that have come. It's difficult to summarize this very rich discussion today, but I would like to say that it's so fitting to have such an important call to action for companies on Kartini Day. So delighted that the event was scheduled for today. You know, I'm just going to reflect on a few of the things that will really stay with me from each of the speakers. And I think, you know, Ibu Risa, when she made her opening remarks, talked about unlocking the door to success. What a wonderful summary of what gender diversity will bring to companies. You know, Ibu Penny, ambassador at the Australian Embassy in Indonesia, talked about how this issue is also one that is really difficult to shift in Australia. And a similar survey by Chief Executive Women here actually gives us fairly similar results to the results you have in Indonesia. This is something the whole G20 can be working on together. I think that's a very exciting prospect. Minister Bintang gave a really powerful speech in which she outlined, I think, the broader issues in society that are impacting on the extent to which women are rising to executive leadership. So let's bear that in mind, but not let it prevent progress. Well, Ibu Maya Juwita, I thought your presentation of this extraordinary data was very, very valuable. 15% of ELT roles held by women here in Indonesia, and 4% of female CEOs in the IDX 200. But really importantly, 94 or nearly half of all IDX 200 companies do not have any women at all in their executive leadership team. Now, here in Australia and in Indonesia, this data is not changing over the period in which we're measuring it. So there isn't a trend, and I think that's what's quite shocking. You know, Ibu Shinta Kandani spoke very strongly, and her quote, "We're more powerful when we empower each other," will really remain with me. The panelists were fabulous in terms of the range of ideas and convictions that you brought out. But I would like to say to Pakinano, IDX's role in this research and your commitment to continue to take this work forward, both internally within IDX as an organization, but within listed companies, really gives me a lot of hope and excitement that change will be happening and change will be coming. What an important organization to take on this journey. Ibu Febriani, I think your sharing of your personal story to becoming CEO in a male-dominated industry is inspiring for all women, because I think part of your message was, I'm not a man and I bring my own strengths. All of us bring our own strengths, and don't be shy to understand that and, you know, really use that in driving your company forward. And I think your presence, as well as the nickel price, I'm sure has had both have impacted on the share price. So Jenny, I think also, again, very encouraging to hear the work that NASDAQ is doing, again, internally, but also to encourage diversity within listed companies is important. But I hope today is a day of action, not a day just of discussion. This discussion is important, but there are ways forward that we need to highlight. Gender parity has a material difference, makes a material difference to company performance. And that is why stock exchanges should be determined that listed companies really are transparent with the gender statistics. So moves towards revealing gender statistics are important for investors, for shareholders in those companies. So I think in terms of where does this work go, encouraging all G20 current countries to adopt mandatory gender reporting and hold companies accountable for that transparency is a really important move. So I hope that IDX will be moving in that, and I hope at the ASX here in Australia as well. But this won't happen by magic. Companies have to take action to drive change, and we've heard about that today. We haven't really talked a lot about setting targets or quotas, but I think that has to be in companies' thinking as they go forward, because this is a hard road and there has to be determination to drive progress. And I would just like to finally give a call out to IBCWE, because of course for companies that are looking to change, IBCWE has tools and systems that can help companies analyse their state of gender equality and then set action plans that will be effective in tackling the issues that are holding back gender parity. Thank you very much for this fascinating forum. Thank you so much for being able to participate, and back to you, Rory.
So much, Dr. Julia, for the comprehensive conclusion. I believe it sums up everything that we had in our discussion earlier today. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Julia. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have previously discussed the importance of having women in leadership and how more initiatives are needed from the organization to support women rising to the top. And furthermore, gender reporting is a strategic tool for companies to monitor those initiatives as well as a form of accountability to SDG number 5. And we are pleased to inform you that the IBCWE has partnered with UN Women and GRI to develop gender reporting guidelines and toolkit that will help companies on their gender reporting journey. Let's have a look at this video.
Gender Reporting Framework disusun atas kerjasama antara UN Women bersama dengan Indonesia Business Coalition for Women's Empowerment atau IBCWE, dan Gender Reporting Toolkit diluncurkan atas kerjasama antara IBCWE bersama dengan Global Reporting Initiative atau GRI. Indikator dalam Gender Reporting Framework disusun berdasarkan Women's Empowerment Principles atau WEP. Dan Gender Reporting Toolkit memberikan petunjuk bagaimana menggunakan indikator Gender Reporting Framework tersebut dalam standar pelaporan perusahaan yang merujuk pada Peraturan Otoritas Jasa Keuangan Nomor 51 Tahun 2017, Surat Edaran Otoritas Jasa Keuangan Nomor 16 Tahun 2021, dan standar internasional seperti GRI dan WEPS. Gender Reporting Framework dan Gender Reporting Toolkit memiliki 12 indikator untuk membantu perusahaan mengintegrasikan indikator gender dalam laporan perusahaan. Dalam upaya mendukung pelaporan tersebut, Bursa Efek Indonesia bekerja sama dengan IPCW dan GRI akan mengadakan Gender Reporting Toolkit Training. Hubungi Bursa Efek Indonesia untuk informasi lebih lanjut. Mari transparan dalam komitmen terhadap tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan nomor 5, yaitu kesetaraan gender.
That's an encouraging initiative, isn't it? To have a training for gender reporting framework and toolkit for companies under the IDX, and I believe that gender reporting framework and toolkit, this is something necessary and is needed to ensure equal proportion of women and men in our workforce, especially in business landscape in Indonesia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up the event, we would like to invite all the speakers to turn on their camera and we'll take some pictures together. So please, to all speakers, please do turn on your camera. I hope you haven't left this forum yet. Okay, we have all the speakers now. I'd like to count down. Let's have a picture. 3, 2, 1. Let's smile. All right, on another slide. 3, 2, 1. All right, do we have another slide now? Yes, we're going to the second slide. So these are the supporters and also participants of today's event. Please do turn on your camera. I've got 6 now. Participants ready. Please turn on your camera and let's now take a picture together. 3, 2, 1. Very good. Once more, please. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we are not able to cover all the participants of this event since this is live through IDX YouTube channel, but I believe there are many people joining today's event and hopefully they are also enlightened about why gender equality matters in the workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of the ceremony or of the forum today. We would like to thank you for investing your time with us today, and we would like also to express our gratitude to the speakers and also everyone who had supported our event today. So thank you very much. My name is Rory Ashari. I'd like to sign off and hopefully to see you soon. Please stay well. Bye-bye.